Good afternoon. It's my honor to introduce the ambassador, His Excellency Khasbazar Bekhbat. I'm sorry about the pronunciation. Who is the Mongolian ambassador to the United States. He graduated in 1973 from the Moscow Institute of International Relations, and this is Russia's premier diplomatic academy where diplomats are trained. And he earned a PhD in history in 1990 from the Moscow Academy of Social Sciences. He was appointed ambassador to the United States in 2008. He has held numerous posts in the Mongolian Foreign Ministry and many overseas assignments, and these are too numerous to list. But some of the highlights are he was the attaché at the Embassy of Mongolia in Paris from 1976 to 1981, and his daughter, who is accompanying him today, was born in Paris. He was a foreign policy advisor to the President of Mongolia from 1990 to 1991. He was the Vice Foreign Minister of Mongolia and Chairman of the Mongolian National Commission to UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, from 1991 to 1992. And Ambassador of Mongolia to France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and the Permanent Delegate of Mongolia to UNESCO from 1993 to 1998. Ambassador and Permanent Representative to the UN Office, the World Trade Organization, and other international organizations in Geneva, Vienna, Rome, and Ambassador to Switzerland and Liechtenstein between 2001 and 2005. Ambassador Bekhbat speaks 3 languages in addition to his native Mongolian: French, English, and Russian. And he's accompanied today by his wife and his daughter, and he and his wife together have 3 children. The title of his remarks today are the 25th anniversary of Mongolian-U.S. relations. Please welcome Ambassador Bekhbat.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for your very kind introduction. And I guess you understood from the presentation that I'm rather French speaker than English speaker. So I apologize for some lack of eloquency in my English. You know, for me, as ambassador of Mongolia to the United States, it is a special pleasure to be in Utah, to visit your well-known university, and to be with you today, because between Mongolia and Utah, there are many similarities, you know well. And I think the bonds of friendship between Utahns and Mongolians are growing, getting better and better. So I'm personally very gratified and very grateful for the invitation by the leadership of Brigham Young University. Your state reminds me a lot. It's a beautiful country, crossroad of American, really American West. And, you know, you have the same population as Mongolia, 2.7. But Mongolia is maybe 7 and more times bigger as for the territory. You are landlocked state. Mongolia is a typical classical landlocked nation. So there are many elements that get our two countries closer and make us understand each other better. I will speak often peeking in my paper. So let's get started. You know, this year, 2012, is a special year for Mongolia. In a host of events that distinguish this year, I would point out two dates. Two dates I take very close to my heart, maybe on a personal note too. The first is quite understandably 25th anniversary of the establishment of official diplomatic relations between Mongolia and the USA. The second is that this year we will celebrate in Mongolia throughout the year the 850th birthday anniversary of Genghis Khan, the hero and the father of the nation I have the honor to represent so proudly in the United States. In celebration 25th anniversary, we at the embassy issued a new 2012-year calendar with a series of photos, all illustrative of remarkable events of our bilateral relations over the last 2 decades, 25 years. And I wanted to show on the big screen this photo, but I couldn't find in my flash the picture. The picture is, but I think the room is not very big, so yeah. The picture is where is Ambassador Nyamdo with Secretary of State Schultz, just after the signing of the letter on the establishment of our bilateral relations on January 27, 1987. And I gave and I hosted a reception the same day this year, January 27th, in Washington, D.C., to celebrate this anniversary. And we were exchanging remarks with the Assistant Secretary of State, Kurt Campbell. And we agreed immediately that the fact that it happened under the portrait of President Thomas Jefferson, you know this portrait. It's in the treaty room of the State Department. And I think the portrait is still there. And this fact is highly symbolic for our bilateral relations. So I imagined, I told him to detect in the blazing eyes of President Thomas Jefferson a glance both curious and expectant. Curious, yes, because it came, the establishment of diplomatic relations came from far in time, through many difficulties. There were great difficulties. And Then, at that moment of signing, our two nations were still very distant. Mongolia was a satellite of the Soviet Union, a very remote country, a member of then called socialist camp. Expectant, possible, because those were years of hopes. Gorbachev, you know, Gorbachev's perestroika and glasnost era. And there were hopes that something will change, something must change. And effectively, Gorbachev's era brought later tectonic changes to the world order. Those years were exerting deep impacts in Mongolia too. Today, after a quarter of a century, I am truly sure the eyes of the icon of liberty and democracy would brighten differently, very differently, mostly with satisfaction. I can say that in a little more than 2 decades, our bilateral relations have seen an unimaginable then expansion, both in its nature and scope. I say often the success exceeded every expectation. It was very fortunate that the early stage of our diplomatic relations coincided with the historic choice Mongolia made in early 1990 and started its democratic transition. We then needed political and intellectual support, economic and financial assistance from our foreign friends. The United States was among the first who extended helping hands to Mongolia by mobilizing and leading wide international cooperation. And this multifaceted assistance and support played a tremendously positive role in Mongolia's economic and social transformation over the last 2 decades. Today, Mongolia considers the United States to be the most important of its third neighbors. In 25 years, we succeeded to develop a strong friendship and multifaceted, forward-looking partnership we can all be proud of. Let me briefly highlight some of the key areas of our bilateral relations. Political and security relations, and this is the most successful area of our collaboration. Put on the basis of shared values and common interests. Both of our countries have developed very rapidly, very close and interactive political cooperation. We got a very well working mechanism of interaction between legislative and as well as executive branches of our two governments. And we could build up a very productive, regular dialogue at almost every level, including the highest one. For example, maybe some of you remembers the visit by President Elbegdor last June, to the United States. The talks in Oval Office were extremely cordial, and we had between our two presidents a conversation extremely meaningful, looking, I will say, looking forward. Vice President Joe Biden visited also last August Ulaanbaatar. You know that it was long expected visit. While you have maybe some idea about the Vice President Wallace visit he paid to Mongolia in 1944, before the end of World War II. And in the preparations of coming conferences to conclude the World War and to engage after war world order. This visit by Vice President Wallace prepared the recognition de facto of status quo of then Mongolia. Played its own very positive role internationally. You know, I am very happy to have last 2 years US Senate resolution on Mongolia-US relations, calling for further expansion of our bilateral ties in every field, It's quite a good resolution. It's not very usual for one or another country, but it's extremely helpful and productive in terms of looking ahead, how to promote our bilateral relations. Our military and security relations are excellent. We are very thankful for the US for assisting in Mongolia's defense reform, in building its international peacekeeping capabilities. We were together, you know, in Iraq. We contributed troops through 10 rotations, and we dispatched our soldiers too to Afghanistan to contribute to international efforts in stabilizing Afghanistan. As Mongolia pursues a proactive foreign policy, we got with the United States common positions on a very wide array of international issues, starting from nuclear disarmament, human rights, anti-terrorism, climate change, etc., to strengthening peace and security in Northeast Asia. The agenda is extremely full, and we will have this year our annual bilateral consultations with the State Department, and there are also annual consultations between our two ministries of defense, in your case, Department of Defense, etc. They are all productive, giving sense to our day-to-day relations, day-to-day interactions. U.S. development cooperation has played a tremendously positive role in bolstering our friendship. I can say that today in every corner of Mongolia, the people is benefiting of fruitful cooperation with the Americans. U.S. ODA, as well as assistance through multiple U.S. NGOs, embrace all possible areas. It helped not only to overcome early transition shortages and hardships, it helped us to set up working democratic institutions, promote quite a good, I will say, vibrant civil society, to develop more and more dynamic private sector in Mongolia. We signed 4 years ago a nearly 300 million compact with the Millennium Challenge Corporation. This compact provides grant funding to support a 5-year program which includes projects such as property rights, technical and vocational education, health, road project, and the energy environment project. I think this package of grant aid will be extremely beneficial to Mongolia, to Mongolia's growth, economic growth, in eradicating or combating, I will say, poverty in Mongolia. In terms of trade and investments, the United States is today Mongolia's third largest trading partner. Last year, United States was at fifth. Is for the investors, foreign investors in Mongolia, United States is the sixth. According to the last National Statistics Office findings, our import from USA reached more than $500 million last year, making the United States share in Mongolian foreign trade turnover around 4%. 2 years ago, the situation was quite different. We had only $1 million turnover between our two countries. But I can say that the President Obama's National Export Initiative goal to double U.S. export by 2015 is already overfulfilled in case of Mongolia. There are currently nearly 250 U.S. or jointly invested companies in Mongolia. The size of U.S. investments remain still very small, around 3%. But we are very pleased to see the consistently growing interest on the part of many major U.S. companies to invest and to develop activities in Mongolia. Boeing, Peabody Energy, General Electric, John Deere. John Deere will be extremely successful in Mongolia. CAT, Fluor, Bechtel, financial giants like Goldman Sachs, etc., etc. We consider it strategically important for Mongolia to expand trade and economic relations with the United States. And we believe there are ample possibilities to drastically increase U.S. investments in Mongolia, while Mongolia, with its large mineral resources, is engaging on an accelerated path of economic growth. We have to use better the already existing mechanism of trade and economic dialogue. If we look back at the past 2 decades, our two governments have taken a series of very concrete measures to promote our bilateral trade relations and to strengthen the legal environment for investments. In 1991 and in 1994, a trade agreement, a bilateral investment treaty were signed respectively. In 1909, Mongolia was granted by the US Congress a permanent normal trade relations status and the general system of preferences eligibility. In 2004, the two countries concluded the Trade and Investment Framework Agreement, TIFA agreement. In 2010, we signed a Memorandum of Understanding on cooperation in the field of peaceful use of nuclear energy. In one other agreement on aviation cooperation. We are now working on a government-to-government agreement on transparency in matters related to trade and to investments. We think this agreement will be a building block on a way to a free trade agreement between our two countries. We agreed on the idea of having this kind of agreement, and we will move forward. Finally, we are extremely supportive, and we are for further expansion of our cultural, scientific, and educational, I will stress on that, exchanges between our two countries. We are for more and more robust people-to-people relations that could really solidify our relations, our friendship in the future. You know, since early 90s, we've had in Mongolia nearly 800 Peace Corps volunteers, one of the largest contingents abroad. They teach not only English, they bring the knowledge we need in Mongolia. They are, I say often, true artisans of our friendship. There are more than 2,000 Mongolian students today in American colleges and universities. And you know, well, there is a growing Mongolian community. And we consider them also as true artisans of our friendship. The people ask me often what are my priorities during my tenure as ambassador. I say that there are mostly two. While keeping the highest possible political level, this is trade and the economic field, trade in the economic area. The second is how to expand educational opportunities for young Mongolians in the United States. Those are two areas that I consider as keys for our future, how to prepare the future of our bilateral relations. In Washington, D.C., some people call Mongolia-U.S. cooperation is comprehensive partnership, while some others a strategic partnership. Whatever. I say it's a truly working partnership. It's good. It's good. So, looking back from the height of 25 years of Mongolia-U.S. relations, I can say that both of our nation's fathers have all the reason to be satisfied. As for Chinggis Khan, let me dare to say that he is more and more satisfied to see us. I will say two things. One, in recent decades, the image of Chinggis Khan, of the Mongols, has undergone transformation. The image of this great man who conquered and built the largest land empire the world history ever known has undergone, I quote, a transformation showing yet again how the present shapes the past. The shift in perception rests on impressive advances in scholarship on the Mongol Empire, combined with political changes that transformed Mongolia into a vibrant democracy. From a 21st century scholar's perspective, the Mongols appear as early adepts of globalization, linking the remote ends of Eurasia through diplomatic, military, commercial, and cultural exchanges, a prelude to the Columbian exchange of barely 100 years later, end of quote. Second, it seems that today Mongolia itself doing well. Mongolia appears to be on the right track, on the right direction. Since its peaceful transition to democracy and to a market-based system in 1990, our country has made significant strides in achieving fundamental reforms, both political and economic. To support what I just said, let me give you following three points. One, the Freedom House annual survey for 2012 designates Mongolia again as one of 87 free countries out of the world's 195 polities. As you know, a free country is one where there is an open political competition, a climate of respect for civil liberties, significant independent civic life, and the independent media. Those 87 countries represent today 43% of global population. Yeah, there is a need to work on, surpass the half, at least. Two, Mongolia has become one of the most open economies in the region. According to the 2012 Index of Economic Freedom released by the Heritage Foundation, it was released just a month ago, Mongolia's economy registered as one of the 10 largest score-improved countries. This index ranked Mongolia's economy the 81st freest in the world and 12th out of 41 countries in the Asia-Pacific region. So it's already above the average in Asia. Mongolia moved up its rank 3 places in the World Bank Doing Business 2012 report. And last year, Mongolia has been officially declared a middle-income country by the World Bank and the IMF. It's good. Yeah, it's make the image of Mongolia better and better. 3, Mongolia would be one of the fastest growing economies in the world over the next 5, 10, 20 years period. The economic growth was 17.3 last year, up from 6% in previous years, 2010, and could grow as higher as 23% this year. Mongolia's economy in 2012 is projected to have the second greatest growth in GDP in the world, according to the Economist Intelligence Unit forecasts. We will enjoy a mining boom, and we will benefit from investments, large investments in this sector. The IMF and others estimate the Mongolian GDP will reach 15.6 billion in 2016, in 4 years. And maybe up to maybe double in coming 20 years. As you may know, Mongolia is rich in mineral assets. It is estimated that there are more than 1 trillion in probable mineral deposits of coal, copper, gold, uranium, zinc, iron ore, etc. You know, one of them is Oyu Tolgoi, OT, the world's biggest untapped copper deposit operated by Canada-based Ivanhoe Mines and its partner Rio Tinto. This mining deal is worth of $4 billion, and it is likely to spend up to $6 billion very soon. And the company plans to have its first production in June this year, and when in full production, OT will provide 1/3 of GDP of the country. That's big. Next on the table is Tavan Tolgoi, coke and coal deposit. It's a world-class deposit, valued at a range of $5-6 billion. And Peabody Energy is among the bidders, and we wish Peabody Energy win and participate in using this giant project for the benefit of Mongolia and for the benefit of our bilateral relations. The mining boom is already providing significant investment opportunities in other areas, in financial services, in infrastructure, in the agriculture sectors, too. And the Mongolian government is committed to attracting foreign investors, is committed to creating most favorable possible legal environment for them. As of the end of last year, foreign trade turnover of Mongolia reached $11.3 billion. That is 200% increase in 1 year time. At the same time, foreign direct investment is doubled from 1.4 billion to make around 3 billion, yes, last year. We are very well aware of the importance of stability and transparency in that matter. And as I said, we are working with the United States on a transparency agreement. We will see very fastly growing interests on the part of U.S. companies. Let me say that despite these gains, we can be happy with and satisfied. Despite those achievements and successes, Mongolia faces many challenges, tremendous challenges ahead. Starting from its geographical disadvantage as a landlocked nation, there are challenges, difficulties of interaction and trade integration with our neighbor countries, with our neighboring nations. It's difficult due to transportation and delivery service inefficiency. In other aspects, there are many challenges we have to face, like how to integrate our rural population to the economic growth of the country, how to improve infrastructure. The country is so vast and it will demand tremendous investments. And how to deal with the phenomena like corruption in the country. Rapid rural-urban migration and the degradation of natural resources are also challenges which require urgent attention. You know, the capital city, Ulaanbaatar, has grown from about a quarter to nearly half the population in recent years. It rapidly increased pressure on land and water, utilities, and services, and contributing to increasingly hazardous levels of air pollution. In the rural areas, pasture land is being degraded due to a combination of desiccation and overgrazing. Forest and wildlife is being lost to illicit harvesting. In some areas, it reaches alarming rates. Market forces have increased the disparity between the living standards of rural and urban populations. There is a widening income gap between haves and have-nots. An estimated 30% of the population still lives below the poverty line. So, one of most acute, pressing concerns is today how to combat the poverty effectively, how to make the entire population, not only some segments, benefit really from the growth, from the coming wealth. This is a very big question. Over the last several years, government has worked quite well on how to tackle and how to find good solutions on that. And we created a Human Development Fund in 2008. Then we adopted in the parliament a series of laws, how to regulate, how to distribute on an equal basis the benefits, the common benefits from mining, from minor resources of the country, how to support poor segments of the population, etc., etc. The magazine Forbes, in its latest ranking of world richest countries, placed Mongolia 124th only. It's out of 182 nations in terms of per capita GDP. Mongolia's per capita GDP is today 4,500. In early 90s, it was only 400. You know your own, 45,000. Long distance to go. In 4 years, in 2016, our per capita GDP is predicted to increase to $8,500 US. And our objective, very officially put forward, is to reach to 2021 $12,000 US. It's quite an ambitious objective, but it's feasible, it's attainable. The question how to realize this objective depends on ourselves, on our own efforts. And very important, on our skills of organization, determination to manage the nation's affairs. It will depend also in large part on our cooperation with our friends abroad from the international community. When I say international community and our foreign friends, I think at first about the US, our American friends, as the world's leading power, as our trusted partner in making Mongolia a better place to live and to live to generations to come. Thank you very much. Thank you.